Hello. A quick, semi embarrassing disclaimer about this episode. I rushed it like crazy. I did not have the proper materials. I did not have the proper setup. I didn't know that you shouldn't try to record a podcast in a residential neighborhood on a Sunday afternoon. So the audio quality is terrible. If you're still interested in listening to this podcast and you can't really understand the audio, I made a transcript video on YouTube, so you can follow along there. If you can't stand listening to this because of the audio quality, I completely understand. So do yourself a favor in that case and go check out Ossia Dwyer on YouTube. Check out her special knockout or look at any of her clips on Instagram. She is completely hilarious. Do yourself a favor and get to know her comedy. Anyway, if you're a fan of the podcast, please enjoy this episode. And I deeply apologize for all of my early mistakes. Before we get started, I'm extremely proud to say that this episode of The Petrified Comedian was brought to you by 4x3. 4x3 is an independent media company creating comedy content on YouTube. This week, they dropped a feature set from Chicago comic Nina Kern. Nina has a confident, laid-back style that's as unique as her name. Support independent comedy at youtube.com/@FOURXTHREE. Or by looking up 4x3 on YouTube. Please enjoy the show. Ossia Dwyer is an England-born, Vermont-raised comedian now living in my hometown of Cincinnati. She's got a great blend of dry wit and Midwestern honesty. Her special knockout is available now on YouTube. Ossia, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, if you could describe your comedy in 3 words, what would they be?
Oh, gosh. Embarrassing. Honest. And maybe too sad. Too sad for some audiences.
I think there's a lot of comedians doing that nowadays.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, congratulations on the engagement.
Oh, thank you.
When's the big day?
End of October. So
Awesome.
we have been engaged for a while, so I am milking that joke.
Amazing. Yeah, my best friend has been engaged for over a year and a half now. His wedding's also in October.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. So I think it's kind of a unique question that I get to ask you. What's it like being in a relationship with another comedian?
Oh, it is. I think it's the best thing that it has ever happened, but I would not recommend that other people try. I think it's so rare when it works out, and it's so frequent that it doesn't work out, and it's very difficult. So I feel very lucky.
That's awesome. Yeah, I reached out to him, just said a quick word. I actually didn't realize he was your fiance.
Oh, yeah.
And he said some super kind words. Sounds like you found a great fit. So you were born in England, but
Yes.
You were raised in Vermont.
Yep.
Tell me about Carhartt Corner.
Oh gosh, I forgot. I don't mention that often. This is when it gets too honest. It's like, I don't know. I think it kind of sums up like where I'm from. I think people do have like a preconceived notion of Vermont that it's all, tie-dye hippies and school buses that serve crepes, but it's from like a very working class. It's a weird dichotomy, but yeah, Carhartt Corner was. I don't know if it still exists. It might not. It might be like they might have got too woke. It might finally have been gotten rid of. But it was that was like the vibe of my high school. It was Carhartts and trucks, and it was weird.
We had a weird similar situation where there was a little outcropping in our parking lot that the seniors would literally line up in front of until school started. And just to keep any freshmen, the juniors and sophomores.
Yeah.
Do you feel like if you went back, you'd earned a parking spot?
I hope so. I think so. I think I have the confidence to talk to those people now.
Nice.
Those were like the kids that ran our high school. That was weird.
You mentioned on the Bastard Sermon podcast that they would like tow your car if you tried to park there.
Yeah, it was like really intense. But like, I mean, I think it was also like everyone that went to school there like had sort of grown up together, so you knew.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you're a new kid and you're just like, there's no assigned parking, we just park here. Yeah, you're screwed.
So the dogs are trying to break in, which is totally fun. So I know you came to Cincinnati for Garrett's job. How are you liking it so far?
I love it. It's been an amazing move. I mean, we were in Pittsburgh for like 7 or 8 years total, and I loved Pittsburgh, but kind of having a fresh start after the pandemic with comedy has really helped, I think, both of us. Like being in a new scene, seeing new people. It's so crazy how many other places you can get. Like I've been just this week in Tuesday I was in Louisville, on Thursday I was in Indianapolis, and then Friday and Saturday I've been in Columbus.
Yeah.
So it's been amazing.
That's awesome. So you're an engineer, right?
Yeah.
What kind of engineer?
Technically I'm a chemical engineer
Okay.
with a focus in mining and mineral engineering.
Okay.
But I work as a materials engineer, so
Okay.
it's all, I don't know, it all means the same to me.
Yeah.
I don't really.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I went to school for engineering.
Okay.
Did not work out.
Yeah.
But, now I'm in marketing. So,
Nice.
do your coworkers know you do stand up?
Yes, so they do. One of them has come out to a show, but they all know, and I think they could probably find me on the internet.
Yeah.
But I have, I say I try to keep it separate because I don't need like my boss knowing about my sex life. That's the weird part. It's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You don't have the same relationship with your boss after that.
No, not at all. I'm gonna take a quick break, and I'm gonna send that downstairs. Dogs. All right. I had a gate that I meant to close. As soon as I heard that, I was like, well, shit.
No worries. I grew up with dogs.
Good. What kind of dogs?
We had a chocolate lab and then a Chihuahua Jack Russell Dachshund mix. Ooh, he was great.
I was about to say, that sounds like a nightmare dog.
And then now my parents have like they have like a mutt and then a red bone coonhound. And then it's like their new children.
Do they still live in Vermont?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to say, red bone coonhound, that sounds like a farm dog.
Yeah, it's a big dog.
Yeah. So has your stand-up ever gotten you in trouble at work?
Not yet.
Okay.
I think it will. I mean, I think it might, because like I work in the defense industry, and I will just say whatever's on my mind. So I know eventually I'm gonna get a little loose-lipped and probably get fired.
Hopefully at that point the comedy's picking up.
Yeah. So far, yeah, that's the goal. Okay, this is the best.
Absolutely.
This is for the best.
Yeah. When it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah.
So I'm living in Columbus now. I'm from here, but I'm relatively unplugged to like the Cincinnati comedy scene.
Yeah.
Where's the best places to see local comedians?
The best club in the area is Go Bananas.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they have really good comics that come in, a really good mix of comics. So like in a month, you're gonna see a really wide variety of big national headliners coming through, and they're really plugged into the like local comedy scene. So you're gonna see amazing Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Columbus comics like with these huge headliners.
That's awesome.
It's the best place, I think.
And so that's your favorite place to perform. Are there any like fringe comedy clubs that are coming?
There is every week in the north side, Wayne Memmott runs a show called Helltown, which is also really cool. That's like a lot like sort of those people that are right on the cusp of maybe headlining club. They're gonna come in, you get to see them. It's a really cool bar, like more of a divey feel. But I that's another one that's really cool. And then Carter Doherty runs a company called River Monster, and they put on a lot of pop-up shows. So every Tuesday in East Walnut Hills, where I live, at a coffee shop called Symposium, they do a show.
That's awesome.
That's really, really fun, and he puts on a bunch of stuff. So there's so many that we have such a good kind of base of Go Bananas, like always going to be there, solid every week, and then these like other people putting on shows as well. It's really it's a really good place to do comedy right now.
Yeah, and there seems to be a growing market for pop-up shows like that.
Yeah, like the Don't Tell, like in Columbus, the Don't Tell, which is crazy successful, and Simon kills it every time.
Yeah, Simon is hilarious. That is, so I, like, starting this podcast, I was like, this is going to be something I do for fun. And then I found out my friend who's doing this podcast is actually earning income off of it from sponsorships.
Okay.
And so I like to pretend what would it be like if I had a sponsor. And I think a Don't Tell Comedy would be a great person to reach out to.
Oh yeah,
in terms of like promoting local shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, they do so much. Like the one in Columbus is like one of the most successful in the country.
It's great.
They're like it's a big national brand. I did 4 shows with them. All of them sold out. We're like in a glasses shop with like a headliner, Caleb Simon, who like is gonna be Echo Man this next month.
That's
So
awesome.
it's really cool.
So, what do you love about Nacho Libre?
It's like it's so it's like the aesthetics of it. It's like the big open kind of shots with just like Jack Black's white body shorts. I think it's so beautiful, but it's just such a weird, bizarre film. It's so simple, just him. All he wants to do is like get more food for these orphans. It's so inherently sad. It's devastating when you think about it, but it's so fun.
Yeah, my mom hates that movie, but can't help but quote, sometimes grown-ups wear stretchy pants. It's just one of them.
It's so good. It's like so. I love food, and like there's such a weird focus on food. Like when he eats the corn.
Yeah, that is. I need to give that a rewatch. That's Well, speaking of your favorite things, I actually have an Easter basket for you.
Oh my goodness!
And I hear you have a good story about at least one item in this Easter basket.
So nice. Oh, is it the Jolly Ranchers?
It is Jolly Ranchers.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah, I love candy, and I love Yingling and High Noon as well.
I'm a fellow lover of all of those things.
So the best comedy advice I ever got was that I needed to stop eating Jolly Ranchers before I go on stage because they were staining my mouth blue and purple. So I was like, I went on, it was in Pittsburgh. It was my friend Lorenzo, who's an amazing comic in Pittsburgh. And he's like, I got off stage and I'm like, oh, I didn't do as well as I thought. He's like, people were focused on your like purple lips. You blew a Smurf.
So like, you had a lot of Jolly Ranchers before the show.
Yeah, like 7 or 8.
That's a good amount. Have you ever answered to the nickname Poop?
Yes, I have. Yeah, that is my friends from Vermont. That is what there was like a really weird thing. Some like hippie thing where they're selling these shirts that literally just say poop, and it was something to do with oil. I don't really know, but it was like a big thing when I was a kid, and I got one, and it was like the one shirt I wore for my entire life. So I will respond to that.
That is truthfully a way better story than I thought it was good because like. That could have been a mean nickname.
Oh yeah,
just the fact that it's a shirt you have.
Yeah, a shirt. Yeah.
So talk to me about your experience with hecklers.
Oh, I don't like hecklers, but I do like doing crowd work. I think like how I present myself on stage is kind of seems like it would be very easy to heckle. And I'm not coming out there being like, listen to me. I'm kind of always take like a softer approach. So I had to learn really early on how to address hecklers, like, because if you just let them do whatever they want, first off, they're gonna ruin your set, and then you're kind of opening it up for the rest of the show, like for them to dig on other people. And I never want to do that. Like if I'm not the headliner, I'm not gonna try to open it up so that people try to like make where it's not a crowd work show. Mm-hmm. So I like it. It's mostly men.
Yeah.
And they just want to be part of the show. They think I'm the funny guy. I'm going to help you be part of the show. And I do continually go too far.
So speaking of that, when I saw you as at the Ian Lara show in Columbus, can we talk about that night? I don't want to ruin the joke.
The one with the guy in the front row that I said looked like he got molested at Ella.
Could you describe that guy for us?
Oh, he was wearing like a purple windbreaker shorts, like jacket, matching hat. It was his birthday. His friends had like matching shirts.
Really? They were like the whole front row.
Yeah, and me and it was a Saturday, right? So me and Chris Seamer had gone into the UDF and seen them before the show, and I was like, oh god, these people look fucking crazy. And then I'm like, oh good, they're right in the front row, and they want to chat.
Yeah, that's amazing. We were in the very last row in that show, so we were just seeing this purple hat causing havoc for the majority of the show.
Yeah, that weekend there were a few hecklers. There was maybe the LL Bean guy was the first night. The purple guy, I forget what I said to him, but it was not kind.
My recollection of it was he shouted out the punchline to one of your jokes, and you go, well, I can't do that joke now. What can I say about you? Which I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
How does he rank among your other hecklers?
Oh, it's like pretty mild.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy what some people will do when they're drunk. Like, you have people who, I don't know that I've ever gotten like, I'm gonna kill you or like that kind of stuff. But yeah, just he was at least like friendly. Like he was like enjoying the show. It's worse when they're not enjoying the show and they're saying, screw you or like get off the stage.
If there was one thing to respect about that guy, it did seem like he could take a punch.
Yes, yeah, and he could, and he wanted to talk about it for like half an hour after the show.
Did he really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So he had a great birthday. What's worse in your opinion? Like a show full of hecklers or getting silence from the crowd?
Oh, getting silence from the crowd. I'm not as good. Like some comedians are so good, and I think it's such a talent to be able to like set things up so beautifully and like be okay with silence. It's like if I don't get an immediate laugh, I pretty much crumble.
Yeah, and you're in Knockout. You have a moment where you make some joke and you go, oh no, too gross for you guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a kind of a throwaway line in that special, which is just like, you guys know yogurt? It's pretty cool. I don't know what it is about that style of joke. My absolute favorite style of joke. Any sort of like throwaway line that doesn't need to be there. I think of Flight of the Conchords' most recent special. They tell a story about muffins.
Yeah.
And 2 sentences in, Jermaine goes, wait, everybody listen to Brett. And to me, that's just such a perfect joke because it's so unnecessary. But the fact that you thought to put it in just makes me laugh.
Yeah.
What's your favorite style of joke?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I really love to like anything that feels like someone is talking to you at this moment of time. Like I love any stuff that is just off the cuff. Like we're talking about the room, we're talking about what's going on right now. Like we are having this experience together. I think that's really what I like when I see people do that. I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm incredibly impressed by people who seek out crowd work.
Yeah.
Sam Morrill is someone who's just been making a name for himself by absolutely destroying people. But then he always buys them a drink afterwards.
Yeah. It's like you're having fun. There's a comic in town, Brand Barnacle, and he is always. I mean, he has a special. It's literally called For the Room. Like he's what I watch. I'm like, what's gonna happen?
I think there's a certain improvisational aspect of that where it's like, to an extent, I would be more nervous going into something like that. But at the same time, you have the ability to cater your show to anybody.
Yes, yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Does the phrase "it's a girls' night" mean anything?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to do where I'm from. We're from a very small town. There's not, especially if you're a teenager, there's not a lot to do. So, we may have driven around Dartmouth's campus a lot of nights screaming, it's a girls' night. The frat guys. Because, but ultimately, Dartmouth has a pretty problematic freak culture. So I feel like we were kind of, doing on the ground feminism for, guys that grew up in Connecticut.
That's amazing. It's guerrilla feminism.
It was, yeah.
So you mentioned on the Bastard Sermon podcast that you've only been doing comedy 6 or 7 years now. And in comedy, like I love the reaction from them because in general, there seems to be this belief that you don't know what you're doing until you've reached 10 years in stand up. So how do you feel about that belief?
I think it's so different for everybody. Like some people, it clicks, you find your voice, you're kind of off and running. And some people, it does take a little longer time. Especially in this day and age, there's no right way to do it. Like you could have a clip go viral 6 months in, and then you're at this whole nother level with people that maybe took 5 or 6 years to get to. So I think it just really depends on how much time you put into it, like what you're doing and what you want to get out of it. When I started, I was still in college and I had a lot of time to put into it, and I had other college kids with me, and we're all engineers, and we're real weird nerds about it, and we would like literally go to open mics, and we would watch every single set every single night, and then we would go home and we would talk about everybody's open mic set, which now if someone did that to me, that's serial killer. But I would learn really quickly.
Yeah, you were studying it.
Yeah, so like it just depends. I think it's so dependent. There's no classic way to do comedy anymore.
Yeah, I've done a lot of performance in my life of sang, acted, played all sorts of instruments. Comedy is the one thing I refuse to try throughout my life. So, been a massive fan of comedy since the first time I saw Jim Gaffigan when I was like 8.
Yeah.
And, I discovered comedians like Bo Burnham, Mike Birbiglia, and John Mulaney when I was around 12. And after that, I made friends by making people watch stand-up comedy with me.
Yeah.
So, to me, like, introducing someone to their next favorite stand-up comedian was like, okay, now you're my friend because we have that to talk about.
Yeah.
So I've spent a lot of my life dissecting stand-up.
Yeah, it's so fun. Like, I don't know. As long as you enjoy doing it, I think that's the struggle. Sometimes you see people start doing comedy and maybe they're having a hard time with it, but they're enjoying it. Like, if you're getting happiness and you're making other people happy 25% of the time, 50% of the time, you're not, caught saying hate speech on stage. Like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that is definitely a good thing to avoid right now. So you've spoken a lot about being an engineer, which is obviously another heavily male-dominated field.
Yes.
How does your experience being a woman in comedy compare to being an engineer?
Oh, I think they're pretty similar. I mean, I think I've been lucky in comedy and engineering. I've definitely had more prejudice in engineering for my gender, maybe, and that's also maybe because of my personality. I'm pretty laid back. Although I don't also try that hard at engineering, if I can be honest. But I think in comedy, it's just being a woman has helped me a lot. There's not that many women doing comedy, especially in this area in the Midwest. We're not Chicago or New York or LA where there's a lot more female comedians. So I have gotten a lot of good opportunities because headliners want to work with female comedians. They want to work with someone with a little bit different voice than them. But it's not always easy. Comedy it's still a little bit more of a boys' club that you kind of have to accept that sometimes. But I mean, there's no one in Cincinnati that I think looks at me or any other female comics as anything different than a male comic, which that's awesome. Been really cool.
Yeah, you mentioned that the Cincinnati comedy scene has been really welcoming to you. And,
yeah, it's been really cool. I mean, we love where we came from. Pittsburgh will always be where we started, but it's been a really good kind of switch. And we took about a year and a half off during the pandemic just because there wasn't any comedy for us to do. So it was scary coming into a new scene. We weren't really sure what was going to happen, but it was just like literally the first day everyone wanted to help and get us on shows. So it's been super cool.
That's awesome. So when you agreed to do this podcast, I didn't have any equipment.
Oh
I was very much, I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll invite her to come record a podcast at my parents' house in Cincinnati so that she'll say no, so I have more time. And you were like, yeah, let's do it, which is honestly, thank you so much. You have been a big part of pushing me into doing this because I really liked your stand up. I didn't want to disappoint you.
Oh my gosh.
So it's been really cool kind of dissecting your stand up. Just looking into your life a little bit. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having half as much fun listening to this podcast as I had making it. That wraps up the getting to know you portion of the podcast. And before we start talking comedy, I want to remind everyone to go check out 4x3. They drop awesome original comedy content every week on their YouTube channel, youtube.com/@FOURXTHREE. Or you can find it by looking up 4x3 on YouTube. Let's get back to the show. So at this point, I've got some boilerplate questions that I'm going to ask you and every other comedian I talk to, just to kind of try and get an idea of what pushed you into comedy. So what did you want to be when you were a kid?
Oh, I wanted to be, I don't know. I don't think I ever had a really clear idea of I want this as my career. Being born in England, the one thing was always I'm not legally allowed to be president. So it was this weird thing of well, I guess I can't be president, so that's off the table. Everything else is still available. I was an extremely shy child, really terrified to talk to people. So definitely did not like performing, did not like being on stage that much. Yeah. My mom tells stories. I've had stage fright from a kid since I was a kid, and you can see it in videos of me where we have guitars everywhere. So my dad would take a really cheap guitar and put it in our room as kids because then we would start to bang on it. Yeah. And there are videos of me where you can see me playing the guitar, and then he sneaks in with a camera, and I just stop. And I'm like, no. and then my mom tells stories where she'd be like, oh, my youngest is so smart. Adam, come here. And I'd get down with my hands and knees and bark like a dog just because I'd freeze up. I wouldn't know what to say. So to me, Mike Birbiglia has a great line about why comedy is so scary, which is if you're a musician and you have a terrible show, you can say, well, they didn't like my music. If you have a terrible show as a comedian, well, they didn't like me. So, yeah, I do feel that every single time. So you mentioned you started in college. Was it sort of just a friend group was all looking to try it and you kind of got sucked in, or what? Yeah, you decided that? Pretty much. I had a really good friend, Joey, and he had maybe done a few open mics before he was 21, and we always end up talking about comedy. I was a big partier in college, but it was always at the end of the night, we're in a corner chatting about comedy, and it just so happened that a kid, I went to the University of Pittsburgh, and this guy, Jesse, decided that he wanted to put on a full late night show. He wanted to be a Jimmy Fallon and Conan, and he did it, and he needed a team of writers. So you had the writing group on that, right? Yeah. So eventually, Joey. I was in the very first episode. I didn't write for, but then he immediately was like, "You gotta come do this." And we met a couple of other kids who wanted to do comedy, and we just kind of hit the ground running 1 month. That's awesome. What was the first joke you ever wrote? Oh, it was disgusting. It was so gross. It was a joke about how I won't eat salad that is I don't like when salad gets rotted, you get salad mix. Yeah. But I will put a penis in my mouth. And I did it at open mic, and it was it's all 35-year-old comics, and they're they all wanted to talk to me after the show. I'm I must be so funny. No. Thinking back on it, I'm glad I made it out of that. Yeah, I think as a comedian, that is a woman. There is a certain danger in talking about sexual stuff when you're in a room full of guys you don't know. Yeah, it makes it just, I like talking about anything. I like talking about just my life, but it does kind of open you up where people feel like they can talk to you at a level where it's like, I don't even know you. Like, we don't need to talk about your body. We don't need to talk about my body. Like, just buy me a drink and leave me alone.
What advice would you give to someone who's about to do their first open mic?
Oh gosh. I think just like be consistent. I think do one open mic, but don't, even if it goes bad, do another open mic because the way that you're going to keep getting better is repetition, and the way that you're going to build a better rapport with comics is repetition. Like, I think as comics, we are a little bit icy because you get the person that does one open mic, you get the guy that lost his fantasy football league, and these guys who and like people, I think comedians get discouraged because they're like, oh, well, there no one's talking to me. It's like, well, we all know each other. We want to talk to you, but we can't be emotionally invested in everybody because then, we would have nothing else to do. I would be heartbroken all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm trying to make friends with people who you're never going to see
Yeah.
again.
That's like, I struggle with the social aspect of comedy the most. Like, I like being on stage, but I'm so bad at talking to people. I get so nervous talking to people. So, I mean, I started with 4 other people. We had a big group. It was like 5 or 6 sometimes. So that really helped.
Yeah.
But then once that kind of went away, I'm like, okay, I gotta figure this out.
Yeah. When did you know you were good at stand-up?
I don't think I ever know. I go through I'm like, some weeks I'm like, I should do this for a job, and then some weeks I'm like, I should never do comedy again. I think the times that it's felt the most rewarding is when it's mostly women or other people after the show are like, thank you for talking about that. That really embarrassing thing also happened to me, and I feel better about it. So I'm like, okay, if I'm making people feel a little bit better about, falling or doing something gross or being sick, like that makes me feel good.
My girlfriend absolutely loved your bit about the gynecologist.
Oh yeah.
And the subway table.
Yeah. Oh, that's my favorite bit to do, but it really does not work some places.
Yeah, I imagine the more liberal an area, the better that works.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Do you have a pre-show routine?
Not really. I mean, ideally, like if it's a weekend and I don't have to work, I really like to make sure, like, I like to have clean hair. You might really would. I feel like I'm a better comic if I have washed my hair that day. I don't know why. So, like, to just be able to do that, relax. If I'm on the road, I like to get there like an hour early just to relieve any, variables. But especially with working full time, sometimes, it's leave work, get somewhere, change at a rest area. Like, I'm not really nervous before I go on stage most of the time. So if it's like sometimes I'll have one drink. Most of the time I'll have one drink before I go on stage, but sometimes not. I'm trying to get better at just drinking water because I do get very dehydrated.
Yeah, I have my emotional support water bottle.
Yeah.
I drink about twice a day. And yeah, I constantly have track.
Yeah.
So how often do you perform?
It varies. Now it's like between sort of 3 and 5 times a week generally. But if I have a really busy week, I'm trying to get better at like taking time off. Because like, so I just had maybe 3 crazy weeks in a row. I know I only have 2 shows this Saturday. That means I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stay in at least 2 or 3 nights this week to kind of reset.
Yeah.
Because when I'm like tired and grumpy, I'm not funny. I don't feel funny.
Absolutely. Yesterday I woke up, I had gone partying with some friends from Cincinnati. I woke up at like 5 in the morning. Like, it'd be a really bad idea to try to do the podcast today. I had terrible heartburn. I need to stop drinking ciders.
Yeah. I just started getting heartburn from drinking. I'm like, this is terrible.
It makes you feel a little bit like you're dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, this didn't used to happen to my body.
I used to be young and fun.
Now you just one of those things. So, what's your favorite venue you've ever performed in?
Oh, goodness. I think like pretty early on when I was still in college, I got to perform at like a theater on its campus that held like 300 people. And that was great. I was like a year and a half in. It was like opening for our late night show. So that was really cool. I think I've been everywhere from like outside in front of a burning garbage can, like some of like the coolest clubs in the Midwest. But yeah, that I think that felt really cool.
Yeah. So outside in front of a burning garbage can is not the strangest place you've ever.
That one was pretty weird. I mean, it did like a coal mining bar in West Virginia once. I think a guy's house.
Yeah.
It was his old dog grooming studio that he had converted into like a Ray Dunn themed hangout. That one was a little sketchy. I'll pretty much go wherever. Yeah, like, I don't. If I have the time to do it, I'll go. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could tell. Yeah. What's your dream venue? Oh, I would love to perform like back in Vermont. I think that would be really cool. So I do. I mean, I'm happy to be in Cincinnati now, but I love Vermont so much. So to be able to do something there, maybe not like in my hometown, maybe
Be a weird path.
maybe an hour away from there. So that would be awesome.
For the part of Vermont with Ben and Jerry.
Yeah, the nice part.
So, I feel like every comedian bombs at least once in their life. Have you had some bad experiences with bombing? Oh yeah, I don't bomb constantly, but you need to have some type of bomb to bring you back to earth. What's the most important thing you've learned from bombing? I think it's like the recovery, and I'm still not very good at it. Like when I bomb, it is like, well, guess this is the last show I'm ever gonna do because it may be a little bit dramatic. But it's like, I try to just think about like, what did I not do right? What did I not kind of cater myself to the right audience? Was I, not interpreting what they were looking for the right way? Like, I never want to have some ego that's like, I have these jokes and you need to appreciate them. I want to be like, well, this is the kind of comedy you're looking for. Can I provide that to you? So that's what I kind of feel like I got down on myself because I feel like I failed. Like, it's not my material. I was not good enough so that these people had a really good time. Yeah, I think about Dave Chappelle has a bit where his son asked him for money to go see Kevin Hart, and it was gonna be like $110 a ticket. And he was like, "Kevin Hart's funny. Is he $110 a ticket funny?" So yeah, there's definitely that pressure. Like even comedians feel about each other. Like, are you gonna be worth my time? Yeah, and I think that's so interesting because it's one of the only art forms where like you go and if you're even slightly disappointed, you're just like, well, that wasn't worth it at all. Yeah, yeah. But if you saw music, you'd be like, well, I liked like 2 or 3 of the songs and I had a nice time. Yeah, exactly. So how did you come up with your material? Oh, my material is like very personal. I think I'm not great at just generating material. Something really has to happen or like I have to think of something in the moment. A lot of my new jokes come from like just being on stage and saying something and being like, okay, that's stuff like let me expand on that the next time. So it really is kind of spur of the moment or like traumatic experience for me. Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, I have a question on here. Do you think it's more important to be a writer or a listener as a comedian? When I say a listener, just like someone who lets the jokes come to them. Yeah, I think it really depends on like your style because there are so many good comedians that are just able to generate like I'm just gonna write 25 minutes of material and like I just don't have that quite. I don't have that skill or I don't have that voice. So I think it's really figuring out what works for you. Yeah, for me personally, I have about 6 months ago, I was listening to Mike Birbiglia's podcast. And he, in a big way, inspired me to do this, to try comedy because what was so interesting to me about that podcast is he is one of my favorite comedians of all time. I think in terms of being able to control a room. Nobody does it better.
Yeah.
He's not funny in this podcast.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point of the podcast is he's showing people that comedians are not just people that are joke after joke after joke. They have to take time and think about it and work on it.
Yeah.
And that podcast is called Working It Out. And so every episode they take a minute and they pull out their joke notebooks and they bounce ideas off of each other, which I had no idea that was what comedians were doing.
Yeah.
In my mind, comedy always seemed much more like a really competitive space. And to see that there's a lot of camaraderie between comedians. Yeah. And I'm sure there's competition, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's a. Garrett always said that it is it's a individual sport. It's like, you're not on a team all the time. You don't need other people necessarily, but it is like, because ultimately the people that are doing it a lot, you spend a lot of your life with these people. Like you see them every single day sometimes. And you do you see how other people progress. You see how you work, and it is great. Like some of the best tags that I've gotten are from other people, which you're like, oh, I should have thought about that. But it is amazing that kind of it's a real community. Like once you're in it and people, you give to other people, they'll give to you. I know, I could be in another city and say, I need somewhere to stay, and I could find that.
That's awesome. So, I mean, I guess it's there's probably more people trying to be comedians right now than there ever have been.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, you now have this network of people that you can rely on. That's awesome. Who are your biggest comedic influences?
I think the ones that I feel like I maybe take after or really enjoy watching, so they're similar to me. I really like Maria Bamford.
Oh yeah,
she's one of my favorites.
She's so great.
Yeah,
she'll talk about anything.
Yeah, and I really like that, and she is not feels nervous. It feels stressful sometimes, but it's so funny. It's so real. And then Joe Firestone is kind of the same way. She's her album is one of my favorites to listen to.
I'll have to give her a look. I don't know if I know Joe Firestone. What do you love about comedy?
Oh, I love it really is. I just really enjoy making other people laugh. I can have a good time on stage. I can have a terrible time on stage, but as long as people are laughing, I think at my darkest moments in my life, I've turned to comedy. I want to watch something that makes me feel better. So if I can do that for someone else, that is so rewarding.
Do you remember the first time that you felt like you really nailed it at a show?
Yeah, I think I did a show. It was some sort of female event back in Pittsburgh. It was really, really new, and it was a 4-hour event, and it just needed to fill 10 minutes. And I don't think I had 10 minutes. I probably only had 4 minutes of material at the time. But I went on, and it was one of those really supportive kind of we're all women. It was a completely female audience. It was poetry and burlesque and music and such a mix. And coming from just doing open mics, which are not the most supportive areas, to that was the first time I'm oh, I feel comfortable. I can talk about myself. I can talk about my personal stuff, and it will work eventually. Just gotta figure it out.
Yeah. Is there anything you hate about comedy?
Yeah. I mean, it can get so not sad, but it is, especially me who's very personal on stage. It can get, we have 3 or 4 days where I'm not really feeling it, and I'm just this is making me sad. I'm very all in or all out.
I understand that for sure. In high school, I was a part of a play that ended up getting picked up. In Cincinnati, there's this thing called the Cappies, which is the Tonys for high schoolers.
Okay.
And it's at the Airmouth. So me being a Petrified person, all of a sudden I was nominated for 2 awards. And I didn't get either of them, which all of a sudden just sent me spiraling. And I didn't want to do plays again. But like, I went from feeling like, oh, cool, I'm doing a play. Oh, now I'm performing at the Aeronauts. Oh, I'm nominated for awards. I didn't get them. Oh, shit. I just didn't want to. It took me. I almost quit acting after that.
Yeah.
And it was like going from maybe the coolest thing I got to do to immediately feeling terrible. It was such a weird experience for me.
Yeah. It is. It's such. I mean, comedy is all highs and lows. It's like, 1 week I'm down in Lexington getting to host for Theo Vaughn for sold out shows, and then the next week I'm, bombing at a coffee shop. You can feel on top of the world. It's not going to last that long.
Absolutely. Who's like the comedian that you got to work with where you're like, you had to pinch yourself?
Oh, I mean, Theo Vaughn was crazy. I was very different style than him, but I really like he's crazy, and those shows were amazing. And I've never seen a comedian give at that level give so much back to his fans. He stopped and talked to every single person in that theater every show, or at the comedy club. It was at Comedy Off Broadway. And I think that really blew my mind because that changed like my perception of once you get to that level, having that cut off. And like you do have, it's not, he's not emotionally invested in everybody,
No.
but to stop and take a picture and listen to people, that was really cool. And then I got to work with Sean Patton last December, I think, and he's one that have been a really big fan of, and he's like a real comedian. Like he's so funny. So to watch him was really cool.
I love people that are described as like a comedian's comedian. Anyone who I show a bunch of people and like no one else I know is laughing, I'm like, I think this is just a comedian for me.
Yeah,
I love those people.
Yeah, he's so funny and he's super cool.
I saw you were working with Mateo Lane a little bit.
Yeah, did a couple shows with him back in Pittsburgh, and his audiences were amazing. Like to perform to mostly gay men and gay women was like really, really cool. I was nervous, but that was super cool. But yeah, I was a fan of his for a really long time, and he has since then has really blown up. Like he's doing theaters, he's touring all around.
I actually only found out about him like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then now I see videos of him everywhere.
Yeah, his videos are so good.
Oh my gosh, he's a really talented impressionist, multilingual.
Like the opera singer.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Like traditionally trained, I think opera. Like he has so many talents, and he's like, and also incredibly funny.
That feels like he really feels like somebody who was pushed into doing comedy, like by his friends or somebody like that. Because when you're that funny, people tell you to do comedy.
Yeah.
And he really does seem like the type of person. I watched a video of him sort of telling a story, and he would break in and out of these accents, and sometimes go into full Italian. And you're like, you're really, really, really talented.
Yeah, I think that's a person that clicked pretty fast. Like I think he kind of rose like fame wise, which deservedly, definitely.
Understandably, for sure. Like my current favorite comedian, newer comedian is Taylor Tomlinson.
Yeah, she's so good.
I just am blown away every time. I've seen her twice now. We saw her for the first time on her 15-minute Netflix stand-up thing, and my mom and I were like, well, that's gonna be a star. And upwards of like a year and a half later, she had a full hour stand-up special. Now she's on her third or something like that.
Yeah, she's so good.
She's amazing. She talks about having Netflix money in her newest special and some of the strange things she's decided to do with it. I don't want to give away her punchlines, but it's cool to see someone who rises to that level so quickly because it's so rare, but it kind of gives you hope that it can happen.
Well, I think now in comedy, like it was so much like the only, it's mostly older guys or like you have to wait, you got to put in your time, but there is like a need. People want to hear younger perspectives now. Like we don't want to have to cater our wants and what we find funny to just what's out there because there's so like anyone can be a big star now with TikTok or Instagram Reels. You just need one and you're in it.
Yeah, Conan O'Brien said, if the world you want to live in doesn't exist, go make it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have the opportunity to do that right now. I think that's awesome. All right, last couple of questions. If you were to teach a comedy workshop, what would be your focus?
Oh, I think like not so much comedy, but I think stage presence, and then also like comedy etiquette. It is still like a weird kind of situation where you kind of have to mess up and do something for someone to be like, hey, this is actually how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's like the most stressful part. So if I could like tell people what to do, it's like when you're on a show, this is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you ask how much you're getting paid. Don't assume you're getting paid unless they tell, like those kind of things. That kind of tribal knowledge that it took a long time to figure out and a lot of mistakes. If I can help people with that,
yeah, give them a little boost into the scene. Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. I know there is like just even seeing. We did a show, or we watched a show at the Attic in Columbus.
Oh yeah,
and they had 5 openers, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah,
and they were all just hanging out in the back at the bar, having drinks, and it was really interesting to see. I walked past them a couple of times because I was gonna ask a couple of them to do the podcast. A couple of them already said yes, which is cool. But I could hear them like giving each other advice and just like talking. One of them was really new, and they're like 2 people were talking to him about what he did well. And it was. I think he was only allowed to be a part of that show because he brought all the film equipment.
That sounds about right.
But it's cool to see that comedians really will step in and try to help each other. Like that. So last question: if you could have any job in comedy, what would it be?
Oh. I mean, I would say comedy club booker, but I don't know if that would actually be. I don't know that I could do it. I don't know long term if that's what I want. Um, I think just like being a touring comedian. I think like I would like to be on the road. I think that'd be fun, at least for a few years. Absolutely, and you depending on how it went, you'd have the opportunity to bring Garrett. Exactly. Yeah, that is the dream. I mean, we both have always had like a built-in opener. Yeah, absolutely. We only need one hotel room. We're cheap to book together. Yeah, you guys can have a single comedy career. Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being here, Ossia. This was wonderful. That's it. I did a podcast. Congrats on the first one. Thank you. Thank you so much.